Episode 2, everything I touched seemed to just turn to gold. I was very, very fortunate when I got in the car business. As I concluded the last episode, I talked about getting into the car business and actually getting that whole ball started. When I first got into the dealership, I did not get a whole bunch of formal training. I don't know if it's because I was hired one at a time. They put me in a room, had a couple of cassette tapes, Jackie Cooper, Grant Cardone, Joe Verdi, and Paul Cummings, if I recall correctly. And that was pretty much it. They were on the VHS system, so it wasn't something that I could take and duplicate myself. But I knew that I needed that material to grow. But one of the things that I saw in the car business that was critical to me is I saw the opportunity people were making in the business. I saw how much money they were making, and I couldn't really fathom that and understand that in my mind, because I was thinking, man, these guys, I talked to one salesperson, he was making $100,000 a year. I talked to the finance manager, he was making $120,000. Sales manager, another $120,000. In my mind, I was just like, wow. That excited me. That really lit a fire inside of me, because one of the things my dad would always tell me is on top of not going to make much of myself, he'd always tell me I'd be back home. And there was one thing that I always thought, I said, I'm never, ever, ever going back home. But yet working at Lowe's, not doing that well in college, and working at Chili's, I didn't know what direction. So I land in this business and I'm ready to go. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to make this my new NFL. I'm going to find a way to excel at this level and find out how I can be a manager and make that $100,000+ and how I can be a general manager. And so I had this whole quest, and what I didn't realize, what was forming in front of me was my own kind of addiction, the addiction of succeeding. Once again, as I was in this time period of my life, I did not really have any desires to drink alcohol, do drugs. It was my new football. I couldn't afford to have anything interrupt that mindset that I needed. And so I started just doing everything I could. So I would take my automobile. My car was literally Automobile University. I literally, every CD series, anything I could get in my car, I would utilize that time to make sure I was practice drilling, rehearsing everything I could to be a master communicator, a master closer, to understand how to do this business. I was also offering up services. I started selling cars, and literally month 1, 20 cars, month 2, 22 cars, month 3, 25 cars. And this is without the skills that I needed. There was a lot of hustle, a lot of hard work, but there wasn't really the skill trade of working the service drive and understanding, how to handle the phone properly and overcoming objections. I was learning that as I was going. So I was very fortunate and did very well, but it got to a point where when a sales manager needed someone to close a deal, they called Louie. And so I would start going in. You're talking about a 20-year-old kid, 21 years old. I'm going in and closing people's deals. I've been selling cars 4 or 5 years. That was addicting. I was getting good. I would feed that, and I would start to learn more about how to close even better. And that's when I set my sights that I wanted to be a sales manager. I said, I want to be a sales manager. In fact, I want to be a general manager to a car dealership. And that grew into the fact that I even wanted to own my own dealership. Now, before any of that happened, I had to put in the work and the mindset. I remember writing down these 3x5 cards. I would write down physically every single goal that I had in the form that it was already done, and I would date the card. I literally wrote down that I would be a GM by 2002, or it was literally my age, by 28 years old. I would have my own dealership by the time I was 35 years old. I would have X amount of millions of dollars by a certain time frame. I had all these on the note cards, and I remember on my quest that every single time that I would get in a funk or definitely start my day or conclude my night, I'd read those note cards. And again, I was just embedding in my mind what I wanted, and it was already actualized in my head. So I was fortunate that everything that I wanted to do in the car business, it was working. Every goal I said, I want to be a sales manager, I became a sales manager. I want to be a general sales manager, became one. I was a general manager of the same Honda store that I started selling cars at 20 by the time I was 28 years old. That doesn't normally happen. I mean, I was very, very fortunate. And looking back, obviously I had some contacts and people and circumstances worked in my favor. I was also with a great brand, with Honda at the time, and I merged into Toyota. So again, timing has a lot to do with success. And that was the same for me. I was with 2 good brands at the right time and putting in the right effort to make things happen. So I'm running this dealership as a 28-year-old kid. I mean, I'm a young guy running this Honda dealership, and we take the store from what it was doing to making millions, more than it had been making. And I get the call from my platform president at the time, and he says, "Look, Louie, you're not, we need to meet." So I meet with him, and he basically says, "Look, you're too young. You're too young. We've got a guy coming from Texas. He's supposed to be an all-star. We want to let you be a general sales manager. I know you've run the store now for 2 years. You've done a pretty good job, but we think you're too young, and this store should be making X." And I was like, wow, okay. So here's my first emotion and first reality check. Because in my mind, I'm going to be a general. I'm going to be a dealer, right? This is what I'm thinking in my head. And now I'm being asked to be a general sales manager. Fortunately, the competitive Toyota store across the street, I knew the district manager well. When he heard the news, he contacts me and says, hey, you want to go with Toyota? And I'm like, yeah, I've never been with Toyota. I'll give it a shot. He said, I got a dealership that you could run, and I think it would be good for you. He did preface by telling me this guy's a little bit unique and weird, but nonetheless, it's struggling. You can go in there and make a difference. I said, okay, give me the opportunity. So I go to the store in Union City, Georgia, and the store's not doing well. And immediately, in a 6-month period, we take it from not doing well to doing very well. And then the guy comes to me and says, the dealership is, he was a state senator in Georgia, and he wasn't in the store very often, but he would come to me and say, look, this store is basically becoming your store, not my store, and I don't like that. I'm making a change. I said, wow, so here I get fired. I'm like, interesting. Now, mind you, the results and the numbers reflected that things were going well, so I'm thinking, that's interesting. Okay, but there's never been a door that got closed on me that I promised that God has not elevated and made it something better for me. It's never happened. The Honda store, the deal at Toyota was much better than I had the Honda. The pay was better, everything was better. So I get fired. So I'm thinking, man. So now, my same district manager calls me and says, look, Louie, I've got another dealership. This dealership's in Atlanta. It's a Group 1 automotive store. And there's been 2 of the best guys in there from the Larry Van Tuyl group and the Terry Taylor group, and they haven't been able to make it go. The expenses are $1.5 million a month. I mean, it's a tough store. Group 1's probably going to sell it if you can't turn this around, but I can serve you up if you think it's something you want to do. I said, it's a perfect store. If no one's been able to make it work, give it to me. I'll make it work. So once again, I meet with a guy and we work out a whole deal. And fortunately, this was the trigger that allowed me to get into the partnership. This is when we're talking about like thinking and how in the world are you going to be able to make this happen, not knowing the circumstances. I had no idea this would happen, but this was the game changer for me. As he worked a pay plan where normally I would make 10% of the bottom line. I negotiated 15% of the bottom line, but I asked him, since you've been losing $1.5 million, can I get 15% of the loss up to increase? And anything over in the black, anything over 0, I still get my 15%. Will you pay me off from your average loss to break even? He said, yeah, I'll do that. Now they had 2 years of $1.5 million. Probably thinking, okay, if you get it to break even, we'll pay you on $1.5 million. So I said, okay. So I get my team, assemble it like I've done in prior stores, bring 6, 7 guys with me. Here we go, we hit the ground running. And once again, that store went from selling 170 cars to 360, 375 cars a month. It was the largest turnaround in Southeast Toyota history from a profitability, and I was able to make $650,000, which I had never seen that. Now, if I back up, when I was at the Honda dealership as a general manager, I was a green PGM, brand new, 28-year-old kid. So they paid me a modest pay. I didn't get a percentage of the bottom line. They paid me a flat fee, and I took it because it was an opportunity. So again, going from making peanuts at that job to making I couldn't even conceive $650,000. I was like blown away. But because that happened, it allowed me to open the doors to get into a partnership, to actually have some kind of liquidity. Now, mind you, from Team Honda, from the Toyota store in Union City, all the way to this store in Atlanta, the Toyota store, those 3 stores, in the meantime, I'm still preaching, oh, I'm going to be a dealer. I'm going to be a dealer. You got fired. I'm going to be a dealer. I'm going to be a dealer. You got demoted. I'm going to be a dealer. The whole time in my mind, I'm still thinking I'm going to, and every single time something came along better. So while I'm at this dealership, I had told enough people that I wanted to be a dealer that I had ran into some people that had finally contacted me back and said, there's a partnership opportunity available if you want to look at it in Augusta. I said, sure, no problem. So I go and inquire about this partnership opportunity, and it was a Toyota dealership. And this deal did not work, but the competitive Toyota dealership next to it called me, and I had no contact over there, 0, and was willing to do a partnership agreement. I was able to put that deal together. And once again, I move everybody from Atlanta to Augusta, and here we go again. We're taking another store on. We're going to turn another store around, but this time I was a partner. Now, mind you, I still wanted to buy a dealership. I wanted to be an owner of a dealership. I took the partnership, and I was completely grateful to do so. And the store was selling 100 cars. We took it to almost 300 cars. We did that for 3 years, and then the lady that owned the dealership said, I want to sell the store. And I said, perfect. I have right of rescission. I have first right of rescission. I'll buy the dealership. She said, great, perfect. It's $10 million. I said, ooh. Okay, so then I asked her, can I do this deal and pay you out over time? She said, I'm 71 years old, Louie. I'm getting my money now. If you can't come up with the money, I'm going to sell it to the guy. I'm like, okay. Again, not crying wolf, not playing a victim. I own 30% of the dealership, so 30% of 10 million was going to get me an opportunity to be able to do something at 35 years old, which was exactly the age that I wrote down on my note card. I just didn't know what store I wanted to buy. So we sell that dealership, and I'm sitting here with an opportunity to buy a car dealership. And finally find a dealership in Millersville, Georgia. And again, that store was in a bad situation, selling 40 cars a month. I got a great deal on that dealership, and because of the volume that it was doing and the profitability, bought the dealership, took another 5 guys, came with me once again. We take that store to 120, 130 cars a month. It was a smaller market store, and I was happy. Everything was good, 4 or 5 years, 6 years to be exact. But then I had a dealer group come approach me about buying the store. They had a Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram store they wanted to buy. They wanted the Toyota store side by side, and they wanted to buy my property where I was putting the new facility. I didn't want to sell it. Again, at the time, I was like the youngest dealer in Southeast Toyota history and one of 3,300 Toyota dealers in the country. So I was very, very excited. But we fast forward, I'm 41 at this point, and I had to make a decision. And at the time, quite candidly, I thought, well, you know what? My relationship with at the time, my ex-wife was not good. It was not good at all. Things were starting to unravel, and I'm going to cover that in the next episode in depth. But it was a part of the reason why I decided to sell the dealership. I said, you know what? Let's regroup. If we did this again, it was going to be 6 times more than what I paid for the dealership. So once again, it was going to propel us financially. I could settle down and try to regroup my life and figure out what's the next play and buy another store. And ended up doing that. So sold that dealership. And as I waited around, I had an independent used car lot that I was running for simultaneously. I had it for about 4 years at the time in conjunction with Toyota, and another year afterwards. And then I decided to buy a Chrysler dealership. And so we bought the Chrysler dealership, and that's where the foundation, and that's where things start to unravel. And in the next episode, I'm going to share with you some of the things that happened to me that totally derailed my whole life in an opposite direction. And it's important to note and understand, because it's pivotal as we're trying to succeed and we're moving forwards and backwards. How do we deal with these things? So hopefully I can be a great example of how not to deal with some of these things, but also regroup and bounce back as well. So in the next episode, we'll cover how the foundation cracked.